I've been sitting in front of this setup here for I don't even know how long now. So I guess I'm just gonna hit record and see where this goes. I don't even know if this is ever even gonna get posted or not, or if this is just part of my own process, or maybe if this would just be helpful to someone else who's going through a similar situation. I don't really know where to start, although I've been thinking about this and been doing this now for a little bit. Basically, I wanted to make this video to be able to explain to my family, my friends, my community, just what's been going on, where I've been, where my family's been, and just kind of where we're at right now. If you're watching this video, I imagine you fall in one of those three categories. So thank you for even taking the time. This video is going to be super different from my normal stuff. Usually I start big energy, it's music playing. I try to be super concise with my information, but I didn't write anything out for this video. I'm just kind of talking. It's probably gonna have very minimal editing, if any at all. But I guess to start, me and my wife, we've been married now for quite some time. And a little over 2 years ago, we got the exciting news that we were pregnant with our first child. And we're so excited. We just moved back here to Illinois, and we're super stoked. I wanted to be a dad by 30, and the Lord had given me the opportunity to literally turn 30 and the next month be able to welcome our firstborn child into the world. And we were so excited. We did photos, we did the big announcements. We told everybody, did gender reveal. But in that time, while my wife was pregnant with our firstborn, we realized that she has a condition called HG, which affects a very small percentage of pregnant women. But essentially what it is a severe morning sickness. And so that happened, and she lost some weight. She was bedridden for, I want to say, about a month. And it was really hard during that time for her. But she was still optimistic, still excited. And once she got into her second trimester, things seemed to be better. And the rest of her pregnancy was pretty healthy. She was awesome. She did great. And we welcomed my daughter, Violet Ray, into the world. And due to becoming a dad, I've talked about this before on the channel, that part of the reason why I stopped streaming as much and really started making more of these videos is that I just wanted to make sure I was present there for my daughter. And this allows me to still connect with an audience and with people and be able to share biblical teachings and biblical truths in a way without having to be live 8 to 10 hours a day on top of working as a pastor and in ministry. These videos can kind of be evergreen content just for references and to give people my thoughts on things without having to be live all the time. And from that came this passion of making videos, and we set these goals that in the first year of me doing this channel, that we wanted to hit 1,000 subscribers and hit 4,000 watch hours and get partnered. And part of that whole thing was that I was going to be putting out 2 to 3 videos every single week. We'd be live streaming once that feature was enabled for the channel. And while we did hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, we were still a little short on the hours. And I had kind of talked about doing some big videos, doing a big live stream to kind of kick off a live stream schedule and do a fundraiser. And I still plan on doing all of those things. And some of you have asked, when are we doing that? And when is this happening? And there's been a lot of topics recently that you guys have asked my thoughts on, from, what's going on with Rick Warren and all of that stuff, and so many other things. When's the rest of the Hillsong series going to come out that we could talk about? And I have plans to do all of those things. But the reason why you didn't see those 2 to 3 videos the last 3 months, and really it's been like one video here and there, hasn't been because I've lost the drive to do this. I still love making videos. I still love doing content and all that stuff. A few months ago, right after we celebrated our anniversary, me and my wife had found out that we were pregnant again, and the baby was going to be due in December. And while I was ecstatic and excited, my wife was as well, but also had this nervousness to her because she knew what the last pregnancy had done to her, and she knew how sick that she had gotten. I mean, I'm talking about like she had lost weight, she couldn't hold food down, constantly throwing up. And while some of that's normal for women throughout their pregnancy, HG is something that's way more severe, way more often. There was a couple times we had to take her to the ER. She had to get admitted into the hospital just to keep her fluids regulated and things like that. And so she was understandably a little concerned about this. Now, my wife knows that I'm sharing this with you guys, and we talked about making this video. Just decided it'd be better if I just did it instead of having both of us on camera to talk about it. And so we were super excited about our new baby that was going to be coming into the world. And we had every intention to tell everybody and to, take the photos and do the big whole thing. But my wife got sick a lot sooner than our first pregnancy. And because of that, that led to her being bedridden, which meant she lost her job, and also that she couldn't do all the normal things that we had grown accustomed to. And at first, it just felt a lot heavier because it felt like we kind of already knew what we were in for in some ways. But the difference here is where the first one, my wife could just be laid up in bed and I could kind of assist her when necessary. She could just sleep and I could just go to work and we can try to make things better. When I would get home, we now had a little one, a 1-year-old, who relied on us to be there, to be able to be with her, to take care of her. And so if my wife's sick, I kind of had to play a caregiver for my wife, as well as a parent for my daughter, as well as making sure that I kept working to make sure that we didn't have to worry about money. And at first I thought this was just going to be a couple week thing before, like with my wife's last pregnancy. But as week after week went by, this time around, it seemed to be way more severe. My wife started losing even more weight more quickly. After just a month or so, she had lost over 35 pounds and she couldn't get out of bed. She was struggling. We were going to the ER sometimes 2 to 3 times a week on top of normal hospital visits and doctor visits. And the crazy thing is what we had learned about HG is that while the mother might lose weight or have some irregular levels, that throughout that, the child would still be perfectly normal and fine. And so for the last 3 months, that's kind of been our life and our rhythm. Me working and trying to find someone to watch our daughter during the day, and then picking up my daughter and taking care of her, and then trying to care for my wife, and then usually by the end of the day, rushing her to the ER. And that's kind of been our life for the last 3 months, trying to keep things together, trying to provide some level of normalcy for my daughter, and trying to just bring comfort for my wife. And the most frustrating thing is there's no known cure for HG. There's nothing. It's just kind of like a waiting game and try to make the person as comfortable as possible. And so for a while now, we've just been kind of looking at the second trimester as the thing that might help us turn the corner and help my wife just feel better and be able to hold food down. And really, since Easter, my wife hasn't been able to get out of bed or enjoy life or even just enjoy a meal. And she missed Easter. She missed, everything and anything that's happened between now and then. And this was kind of our normal cycle and rhythm. But in the last few weeks, I started noticing that beyond just the vomiting and the weight loss, my wife also started to get these kind of dizzy spells and started feeling faint. And I remember one night coming home after work and just seeing in her eyes like this deliriousness. And she was just kind of almost, it seemed like, drugged out of her mind. Now, my wife wasn't taking anything other than the medications that she had. We don't even have any other medications in the house, really. You could just tell that she wasn't really all there. And while trying to help her get to the bathroom, she started to faint on me. And this led us to, again, go to the ER to see what's going on. And again, due to just her levels being irregulated, her potassium, her magnesium had caused this to all kind of happen. And they weren't really sure why, beyond just that she's throwing up a lot and that she's pregnant. And this has been the new tension recently in the last few weeks. Her sleeping long periods of time, even more longer than what she had been before, not being able to look at a screen or text people back because those things would hurt her eyes and it would cause more migraines. And that she, again, was feeling really faint, and we'd rush her to the ER, and sometimes I'd help her feel a little bit better for a day or so, and she might even try to eat something, and that was awesome. But then a day later, she'd be right back where she was. And it was so frustrating trying to work with the hospitals and doctors to say, okay, does she need to go get hydration? Is there something else we can do? And trying so many different medications, so many different hospitals. And yet all of it amounting to her still ending up back to where she was. But even if it was just for a few hours, giving her some relief, felt worth it. And throughout the whole time, through all the pain, struggle, we just kept saying, this is going to be worth it in the end. This is going to be worth it in the end. And this past weekend, I just noticed that it seemed to be getting worse to a point now where this deliriousness, this, faintness, this like incoherency that she just had was just trying to be more and more frequent, to the point where like my wife was just losing touch with reality completely, where she didn't know what day it was. She didn't know where we were. And this caused me obviously to have some concern. And so I took her back. I called her doctors, and they'd encouraged me to take her back to the hospital. And so I took her in Sunday night on Father's Day, and I stayed with her while we waited, they admitted her into the hospital. They were trying to figure out what was going on, doing all sorts of tests and body scans. And at 3 a.m, they decided they were going to keep her for a while. And my daughter had just been with my family, and I didn't want her to have to wake up without her dad there. So I drove back, and we're traveling like over an hour to 2 hours away to some of these hospitals just because that's where the doctors who are helping her were, and that knew her and that knew her condition. And so there's just been a lot of driving back and forth. I got my daughter, and as you can see from some of these boxes back here, we're in the midst of moving. And on Monday, while my wife was in the hospital, I figured that's the best place she could be. They're going to help her. They're going to figure out what's going on. We were planning to move this week, actually tomorrow, the day this video goes up. And I decided I needed to pack up the house. I needed to get things ready for the move. And so we were packing up the house, me and some family. While we were packing, I was packing up my daughter's room, and my wife gave me a call. And I was hoping it'd be good news. I'd been texting her off and on, and she hadn't been responding, which was usual because she, can't look at her phone for too long. And she called me, and I was hoping, for some good news. And I just asked her, "Hey, how you feeling?" And she just said, "We lost the baby." And I didn't know really what to say to that. I asked her if that really was what was happening. Like, did she know? And again, like, she's not really all there sometimes and not so coherent. Maybe she misheard them. Maybe she misunderstood them. And I think I just kept asking her how or why or what happened. And she didn't know. And I rushed down there and talked with the doctors. And I guess shortly after I left, they said they went to check on the baby. Now, mind you, we had literally been to the ER not even 3 days before there. I had footage of the baby moving and kicking and having a heartbeat. We're well out of the first trimester at this point. We're into the second. And I talked to the doctors, and they said that later on after I left, they decided to check on the baby, and they couldn't find a heartbeat at first. And so they did an ultrasound. And not only did they not see a heartbeat, but they didn't see the baby move. Everything since then has been just feeling like a blur of just decisions and things we had to decide on. And I had them do another x-ray because I wanted to see with my own eyes. And they did. They did another one, and they let me see and watch, and they were right. It's such a weird feeling. It's like from the moment my wife shared those words, my heart just split in two. And a very real part of me just wanted to go and be with our child. Just to hold him, to hug him, to say I'm sorry. It's really hard to not put guilt on myself. If I could just do something else. If I would have brought her in sooner. And I don't know if that feeling will ever go away. I don't know if I want it to ever go away. I think I'd feel guilty if it ever did. In the same vein, there's another half of my heart and I love my daughter who is here. And it's not fair to her, and she needs a dad. And I think that's been what's grounded me so much. It's both my faith in God and the responsibility he's bestowed on me as a dad and as a husband to be here for my family. And so for the last few days, I've just been talking to God and asking him to pass messages along to our child. And we're still waiting to even find out the gender of the baby and what could have caused this, because the reality was that HG, while super, super, super rare in women to even have during pregnancy, it's even rarer for a baby to be affected by this. And so they're not sure. They don't have an answer for us. They just know that their heart stopped. And I've had a lot of conversations with God, not really questioning his goodness, but more questioning how to glorify him through this. And it's been a reminder to me how experiences shouldn't dictate our faith, because I can totally understand how someone could go through this and think that God isn't good or that he doesn't care. But I know that he does. His word shows us that it does. Ooh. Sorry, I was trying to make it through this without crying. Sometimes it can feel like evil wins. And in this situation, I feel like what was it all for? We'd the last 3 months, like I said, we've just been pushing and pushing and believing that this was all going to be worth it in the end. And while it was, even for my child, just to be for the 3 months in their mother's womb is worth it. Right now, the feelings right now don't match up with that. It's been a long week since then. Days just kind of mixed together, and I've just apologized so many times to my wife, to our child. When we did the x-ray that I requested, I just remember I don't think I've prayed so hard for anything in my life. Just asking them to move, just asking them to just let their heartbeat be seen. Because I didn't want to go through with the operation. My wife throughout this time was still pretty incoherent. She had still kind of lost touch with some reality, and so she could say words here or there, but she wasn't fully registering. It's really only been in these last day or so that she's been able to start to process through some of this. Like I said, it sucks. And I feel like this is something that often we don't talk about in the church a lot. We don't show this part on a Sunday morning, but this is part of life. If anything, it's just made me realize just how wicked and evil sin is, how it affects us. And like I said, in a real weird way, it's kind of like a phantom limb. It's like, I know something's supposed to be there, but it's not. I know my love for it's there. I know that that's real. And it just feels like I don't know how to move forward. It just feels like, I don't know, sometimes it doesn't even feel real. And sometimes I think we're okay. And then sometimes I can't help but just want to break down and cry. While my wife was in the operating room, my Bible app sends me my notifications, like the verse of the day, or take a moment and pray. And I've been doing that, but I checked it that day. And I just want to share with you the verse that it gave me, that it reminded me of. Matthew 6:33. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. I can't imagine how people go through something like this without God. And the crazy thing is as we've been going through this, I just already am hearing from some of you and so many people who've written letters, and they gave us a bag full of things from people who had gone through a similar experience. There are so many who deal with these things, but out of shame or guilt or whatever, don't share these types of things with people. And I don't know how anyone would do this without God. Because this verse, what it's reminding me is that, like, I can process, I can feel these things, but if I seek God, if I seek his righteousness first, I know there'll be a day where my whole family is reunited again. There'll come a day where I'll get to be with them again. And it's this weird tension. I feel like I've become this walking contradiction of feelings and emotions, because in a real way, I just want that day to come. In a real way, I know my daughter, my beautiful 16-month-old daughter, has a whole life to live that I want to be a part of, that I want to see, and I want to walk her down the aisle. And so it's this weird feeling, like I said, a split heart, where I want to be with our child, but I know I got to be here for my other one as well. They say there's nothing worse than a parent having to bury their own kids. And we're going to have to do that. And it's not fair. And it's not right. And I think there's enough space. I think God is big enough where I could share that pain. I can talk about these things and know that doesn't take away from God and his goodness, doesn't take away from God and his might. It just speaks to the reality of where I am right now. Since that's come out, a lot of you guys have sent me texts or phone calls, me and my wife, and we have an awesome group of people who support us and surround us. To the people at community, thank you. To my family, thank you. To my friends, you guys are awesome. And if we haven't responded directly to you, it's not that we don't want to, it's just processing a lot. My wife is literally, it's like she's jumped in a time machine, and she's feeling better now as the pregnancy is over, and she's kind of come out of that hazy state and her levels have gone back to normal. But it's like she stepped 3 months from the past into the future, and my daughter's bigger now and doing things that she wasn't doing 3 months ago. And also she's processing everything that just happened to her. And so that's where we are right now. We are in the thick of experiencing a loss and going through grief. And a part of my heart wants to move forward and move on to the next chapter and be ready to go and be there for my daughter. And like I said, that just keeps what grounds me, what helps me. But another part of me doesn't want to let go of this because I don't want to forget them. I don't want, like, how do you do it? How do you move forward? I don't know. I don't know if you ever really do. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that well. Like I said, how do I bring glory to God in this situation? People are awesome and they just ask how can they support or how can they help or what can they do. And I don't know. I guess a part of it is if I do end up posting this, you guys can just share this with more people because like I said, there's just so many different people in our circle that some who didn't even know we were pregnant because they know me or they're in close proximity, but we haven't talked about that and they don't normally see my wife anyway, so they don't know that she's just been absent for 3 months. And so for them, they don't even know that we were pregnant. Then you have people who knew that we're pregnant but didn't know that this happened or that my wife's been sick. And then you have people who know that my wife's been sick, know that we're pregnant, but don't know about this. Or there's people that do know about this but don't know like the details and everything else. And so, you know, as a pastor at a church, as a person online, I just thought it would be easier for me to make this video, and that way you guys can share it with whoever you think needs to know or would care. And really prayer. Outside of that, I don't really know what else to ask for. Like I said, we're closing in on hitting that YouTube partnership, and at some point we'll get back to it and videos will be back and I'll do the live streaming stuff and we'll catch up on everything that we needed to on that end. But until then, just know it's not because I lost the love of making videos or doing this stuff. I love doing all of this. But sometimes life happens and I think I just need to take some time with my family. During my wife's operation, I made my way to the chapel room, and while she was in there, there was a Bible opened up, and it was open to Psalm 19, and it was just a reminder for me that throughout this time, throughout my grieving, that this would be my prayer, that now with my baby with the Lord, that what they would see in my earthly life, that I could still model for them. I could still model for them what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus, someone who loves God. Psalm 19 ends this way. Lord, let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock, my redeemer. That's been my prayer, along with so many others, that in this season I wouldn't curse God, that I would figure out how to use this for his glory. But guys, I'm hurting right now, and I just wanted you to know. If you made it this far, thank you. Like I said, I'm like almost at 40 minutes at this point. I'll try to edit this down a little bit, but I got to tear all this down. This is the last thing that needs to get, or this room is the last thing I need to pack up. And I guess God knew why. But this whole thing is just Made me so grateful that we have my daughter and that I could hold her and kiss her and squeeze her. So I just wanted to end this video by saying that even in the midst of this situation, God is good. And because of what Jesus has done on the cross for me, for you, even in the midst of really crappy situations like this, there's hope. There's a hope for tomorrow. There's a hope of joy. There's a hope of a future. And I can't wait for that. So from one last time from this room, so until we get to see you in eternity, baby, know that you are so valued. And your mother and I love you very much. And we'll see you soon.